Hello everybody and welcome back to DIY with the Doc. Join us as we diagnose and repair a GE profile wall oven. Come on along and enjoy the fun. Hello everybody and welcome to the Walsh household. And today we're going to take a look at repairing an oven. And the problem that we're having is the internal mechanism here, the control board, is fogging up. If you're not aware, Appliance Parts Pros and a couple of the other parts supply chains will kind of guide you through what part you might need. And so as it turns out, these ovens, and this is a GE profile oven, have a vent down here. And I don't know if you can see, probably need to clean that one of these days. There should be, when the oven's on, hot air kind of coming out of here. There's a fan up top here in the back that sits on the back of the oven. It leads to a duct that drives exhaust out underneath. That fan quit, and I don't know if you can see some of the scorch marks here. So what was happening is the oven was heating okay, but if you made anything with really high moisture, what would happen is a lot of condensation would appear in here, and then the oven would do what it's supposed to do, which is detect the moisture and shut itself off. So we've kind of narrowed it down. We've got two parts here that we've ordered. We've got the fan kit, and again, this fan kit replaces the back part here. And then we've got a couple of limit switches as well. So here's what we've got to, we've got to pull this oven out of its place in the wall, and we've got to repair it. So that's what we're gonna do. We've got some tools. Here's what we've got that we're gonna need today. We've got a drill, we've got a Phillips head screwdriver, we've got a 1/4 inch nut driver, we've got some electrical pliers, we've got an electric meter, we've got gloves because these ovens have some sharp points on them. We've got some other tools sort of if we need them, but I think this is gonna be the main thing. The very first step in any attempt to repair an electrical appliance, we're gonna flip the breaker and turn that off. So let me do that and I'll get right back with you. Hey, we're back. So look at this, it's off. So we see the display is dead. Important to check though, we're gonna put our meter on the terminals to make sure that we have no power. All right, so first step's gonna be taking the oven door off. Okay, so we have removed all the grates, put these off to the side. Important thing to remember about GE ovens is in some GE ovens, you simply open the door to the broil position and pull up. These hinges are a little bit different. So we need to pull this down. We're gonna take a small flat slotted screwdriver, and this is a hinge lock. We're just gonna pop this forward and pull it down. We're gonna do the same over here. And now we should be able to lift the door directly out. And we're just gonna put this door in a safe place. We gotta clean this too. Over here, so that's out of the way. That also takes a lot of the weight out of the removal of the oven itself. Now we have a series of screws. What's holding this in place right now is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And then there are other times when we have to take this faceplate off. There may be 2 other screws here. So let's take a look. Let's go ahead and take these 4 screws out and we will see if we can get the oven loose. And so what I'm doing here is just keeping all of my screws in one place so we don't lose them. Hi, Sully boy. Hi, Sully boy, you want to help? You're very helpful, buddy. You very helpful boy. Okay, so these are loose, and that should allow us at some point to pop our trim loose. Let's see how loose the oven is itself. It may Have to take this trim piece off as well. We've got our vent trim piece loose. And this seems to want to stick around, so, and again, looks like we've got trim all the way around here, so that's probably going to need to come out. Before we put this back together, of cleaning the oven and all of the trim pieces before we put them back. So let's see if we're completely loose on trim. So this is telling me we're not completely loose on trim. It seems like it's connected up here somewhere, so we're gonna have to, yeah, it looks like it's probably screwed in up here. So we're gonna have to pop this plate off. And important to do this kind of gently because this is where all the electronics live that control the oven. All right, see what it hangs on here. It's just it's almost a thing like the old telephones used to live on. There's a hole here with a narrower slot. So we've just got to pop this side off. There we go. And we're loose. So I'm looking for the screw, and I don't see it. Okay, so we're loose. The oven itself is loose. So this thing we can actually hang back. So we don't need this off at the moment. And you know what I'm going to do just for safety's sake is I'm going to bolt this back in so that when we take it off, it doesn't fall out on us and create problems. So let me do that. I'll be right back to you. Sully boy. Now this is Sully Sullivan Walsh, and he is here to help with the project. What do you think, buddy? Is it going to come out? Is it going to come out? No, he's not sure. And he's taking off. Okay, so we've got all of our screws out. We took this off. There was no screws in, and it looks like this is a little bit loose. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I reattached this panel so that it stays with the oven when we pull it out. And what I have here is just a mover's dolly, you know, 20 bucks. I highly recommend the composite ones. They hold up a little bit better than the wood ones. We live in a really humid environment, so this was a good call. So we are gonna slide this out and place it on the dolly. Haven't done this before. I'd recommend you have a helper, but I do not have a helper today. So I'm gonna see how this goes, give it a couple of test tugs, and see if I can make some progress with moving it. So I'm gonna get this out of our way for a second. All right, so it's not bad at all. Now, the thing is, and I'm going to pull our dolly back in, I don't know the information I don't have is how much slack I have in the power cable that probably goes into that back wall there and the oven itself. So I'm going to have to sort of gently wiggle this thing out and see if I can get a sense for that. I'm not feeling any resistance there. So there's our power cable, if you can see that. And I'm just gonna tip for a second, see how much slack we have. So we got a good bit of slack here, and that's really gonna help us. So let's see. Okay, not overwhelmingly heavy. And it went nicely onto our dolly. I'm just gonna center it up a little bit. Okay, so now we've got the oven in a place where we can safely work on it. And I think we're in pretty good shape. The one thing that I will do is we can see the junction box back here. I'm going to pop that junction cover off. I'm going to grab my multimeter and I'm going to test to make sure we have no power. And when I get some of these covers off, the fan is located right under here, I'm also going to test for power. So you want to test for power and safety the entire time you're doing this job. So let me get back in there to the multimeter and have a test, and we'll come right back to you. Okay, so if you've not used a multimeter before to test for power, I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I've done is I've taken the cover off here, and essentially I'm going to go red lead into the red power, black lead into the black power, just to make sure that there's no current flowing. It's going to be really hard to film that, so I'm just going to do it over here at an outlet. And an important thing to keep in mind when you're testing for power is that your multimeter is plugged in correctly. And it's nice because they're all color coded for that, so that's great. And the other thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that you go with neutral first. Well, first you want to turn your multimeter to the 200 AC setting, right? Because this is not a big 500 circuit. You want to put the neutral in first and then test out, and it should come around 120 volts. So, yep, that's correct. So we would follow the same process. We'd touch black to black first, hot to, in the terminal, and we'd do that. So I've tested that. There is no power, so I'm going to continue. But I'm also going to, when I get the top off here, because we're still connected, I'm going to, for safety's sake, check power again once I get the cover off at the particular equipment that we're looking at. Okay? I'll be right back to you. Okay, so you can see that we need our nut driver to take these panels off. So we're just going to grab this, and first we're going to drop our nut driver completely, and then we're going to put it back. And we will take all of these off. Okay, so one thing I was concerned about is that we might have to take this thing off again to get this out. There appears to be good news on that front. As soon as these came out, this sort of started to slide, so that was great. So here's the wonderful news. We now have access to everything that we need, and we don't necessarily, I spoke too soon. We are going to need to take this off to access the mounting screws for this thing. But here is our fan motor that we think might be bad, and there are a couple of limit switches as well, but we're going to first see if we can replace the fan motor, and here's our limit switch that we're going to take a look at. So we are going to test this for continuity, and the way that we do that is we pull these wires off and we set our meter to ohms. We listen for the audible tone. If we get that audible tone, we would be in good shape. If, however, we don't get an audible tone, we will replace this limit switch. That could fix it, or more likely, it's the fan motor itself that is gone, and we have all those parts. So let me just pop this off and put this down, and we'll get started. And again, as we said, the thing that we were going to do is we were going to test for safety at every turn, right? So we're set to amperage, and we're just going to make sure that there's no power. Oh, yeah, nothing, no change. So there's no power flowing to this circuit at all. That's really good news. That means we're safe to take those terminals off and test for continuity. And this is really simple. We're just reattaching the connectors here. And we're simply going to reinstall it right in its original place. So we now know that that switch is good, and that's not the root of the problem that we're having. So we've sort of isolated the problem now, very likely to the fan motor itself. And again, we've tested this for power. We're perfectly safe in working in here. I've taken my gloves off because it's just a little bit easier to work with in tight spaces without those on right this second. Great, so we've got our limit switch or fuse reinstalled. That's in good shape. So in order to replace this fan motor, we are going to have to remove this part of the cover to get to the screws, the mounting screws. Actually back up right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll pop this off and we'll get this all taken care of. To get this top panel off, it looks like we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I will take care of that. Okay, so we're almost there. We've got this screw, this screw, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and we're going to take this last screw off. And hopefully, if we did everything right here, this should be loose. Oh yeah! So we can pop this directly off. And what that's going to allow us to do, put this back with our other screws, put this down for a moment, is now we can clearly see our mounting screws for the fan assembly. So 2, 2, and 1, and this should pop off just nice as you please. So we will take these screws out, and that should loosen up the fan motor itself. Let's take a look. So this is why, kids, you should have a dedicated nut driver. I'm using sort of an all-in-one screwdriver, which is fine. You get them $4 or $5 at a hardware store. The problem is when you hold this upside down, it likes to fall out. So if you have a dedicated nut driver, if you're going to do this kind of fix on any kind of a regular basis, a dedicated nut driver will make your life a little easier. So as you can see, our fan motor is kind of starting to come loose here. Now probably, before we completely cut this thing loose, not that it's all that difficult to reinstall, we could test that limit switch. So what I'm going to do before I pull that thing out is I'm going to pop these off and I'm going to test this limit switch really quick for continuity, and I'll be right back with you. Again, as we said, safety is a priority, right? So before I touch that limit switch, I'm going to go back in with my meter, and we're just going to make sure that we don't have any juice flowing. Yeah, zeros. So this switch is now safe to approach. Okay, cool. So I'm going to pop these off. We're going to test the switch for continuity, make sure it works, and let's do that right now. Okay, what I've done is that when I pop those off, I made sure to keep this one on this side and this one on this side. So that way I know I'm not reattaching it in a way that's going to be wonky. So what I want to do is, again, set my meter to continuity. I want to double check. Okay, we've got our audible tone, and we want to test this switch. We should hear an audible tone if it's good. So this switch is good. So now we've completely eliminated every factor but the fan motor. So we can go ahead and pop this fan motor back out and that should solve our problem. So I'm going to shut my meter down here. We're going to reconnect our limit switch. So limit switch, test these first. Then we're sure that it's our fan motor that's the problem. Couldn't be anything else. We're going to make sure that it's loose. It is. It plugs in here, so we're just going to unplug and lift our fan motor out. Okay? And there you go. We will grab our new fan motor, which came from AppliancePros.com. Thank you very much to the folks there. They are rock stars. So here it is. We just kind of need to make sure that everything is roughly the same. Certainly seems to be, doesn't it? And we're going to look for our mounting screw locations. We found those. And that was sitting sort of face up this way. So it makes sense that it sit face up this way. So let's put this back in. And the one thing I've noticed right away is that this fan switch has a sort of a grounding wire attached to it. And I see another here that's got a ground wire. I see another ground wire attachment point here. I see a ground wire attachment point here. I don't see another ground wire attachment point, and our old motor did not seem to have a ground wire attachment point. So I'm gonna connect with a local electrician I know and just make sure that's not a problem before I proceed. We had a response, and so this ground wire goes in between the housing and the mounting screw, kind of like that. So that will ground the unit. I'll go ahead and plug these in. And we'll be in pretty good shape. We can put it either on either upper screw we choose. So I'll probably use this one so we have room over here. So I will get that mounted up and we'll take it from there. So let me grab a mounting screw. Make sure that we're in the ballpark there. We are. Okay, so we've now got that properly installed. So that's grounded appropriately. We will put these other screws in, and then we're just going to simply plug in our harness right here. And you want to just make sure that when you're mounting this up, that the vents match up to the holes here. So, and you want to make sure these spin freely as well. Okay, so we've now got the fan remounted. Go ahead and plug this in. Important thing to remember, there's a flat side and a round side here. So we're just going to identify that on this plug. It's not going exceptionally well. So we're going to see if this provided harness works. Yeah, that's a little better. So that slid right on, and we should be able to mount up directly here. So now we are fully installed. Tuck these down just a bit, and then we're going to stick our covers back on and see if we can get this thing fired up. So we've tested limit switch, and we've switched out the fan motor. We've got our ground attached in the appropriate way to this mounting screw back here between the fan and the housing itself. We used the wiring harness supplied to match up an older plug with the newer plug on the unit, and we're in really good shape. By the way, when I had that question, I reached out to the folks at AppliancePros.com. They were able to answer that question. They actually emailed me a schematic to show me exactly how to use this equipment and how to connect that ground wire. So again, can't recommend them highly enough. So let me get these covers put back on with the oven slid back in. We get that cover put back on there, and we'll test this thing. See if it works. We put our 4 screws back in. Looks like we're in pretty good shape. We just need to take the trim for the vent cover, put that back on, those two pieces, put the door back on, then we'll test. Kind of laid all the way flat. We're gonna take our hinge pin locks. We're gonna lock those in. And looks like we've got a good function on our door closing. And now let's turn it on. Back at our panel, oven, back on. Hopefully our time should be flashing on our oven when we get back. That'll be a good sign. Hi, silly boy. Okay, time's flashing. That's a great sign. So let's do... All right, we've reset. So now, let's go bake. Let's go 350. And I can hear, see that fan back there? We close the door, that's working. The vent. Oh, we got airflow. We have fixed the oven. So with that said, these are the tools we use. We did use our gloves, the sheet metal in there. It will cut you. Nut driver, Phillips head, electrician's pliers, multimeter. That's pretty much all we needed. We did use our dolly, that came in handy. Appliance Parts Pros, they were rock stars. That's it, everybody. Hope this was a helpful video for you. Happy to answer any questions that I can in the comments below, and I'll put links to parts and Appliance Parts Pros and all those folks. Have a great day, everybody. We did it. Have a good one.